Happy Indie Animation Day, everybody! Today is a day to celebrate the new wave of indie animated shows and projects and the creators that made them. Now, everybody, let's... Where is everyone? I did tell them all to come here. I said very specifically, on this letter, you were invited to the Indie Animation Day meetup on the 16th of... November. Oh, son of a bitch. Well, I may be late to my own party, but I didn't get this badge for nothing, and even then, that shouldn't stop me from raving about the new wave of indie animated shows and pilots that have been dropping in the last 2 years. So, let's celebrate! Animated short films and pilots have existed on the internet for a long time, with the early 2000s really taking it to the next level as sites like Newgrounds started getting more and more popular. Nowadays, new, interesting, and fun pilots are dropping every other week, some with fantastic quality. About a year ago, I made a video talking about animated pilots, start parentheses, that you should watch, end parentheses, and some of the ones I talked about look even better than some current mainstream animated shows. Long Gone Galt, The Lion's Blaze, Starship Goldfish, which yes, I still intend to make a full review on at some point. They all look fantastic. I genuinely don't get how something this good ends up on a site like YouTube. But this is slowly becoming the norm now. Animation on YouTube isn't just a single person making small, minute-long animations for fun and flash anymore. It's that, and large teams making some of the best animated projects out there. Case in point, Lackadaisy is probably the best looking animated pilot on YouTube right now. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. The opening scene on the old St. Charles Bridge gives you the best first impressions. The colors are bold, the backgrounds are lush, the character animation is great. One of my favorite scenes from the pilot is when we actually go inside the Lackadaisy speakeasy. The lighting, the colors, the characters, the design of the location itself. They nailed this late night vibe of a rundown bar in the 1920s. Lackadaisy came out swinging with its visuals, and the best part is that while it has its bright and gorgeous moments, it also has its flip side. The majority of the pilot has this dark and gritty look to it, emphasized in part by the construction lines, which I'm admittedly on the fence about. On one hand, I think they can get really distracting at times when characters aren't moving around that much, and in a few instances, it took me out of the scene entirely. On the other hand, the construction lines make action scenes feel so much faster, more explosive, and chaotic, and it makes them a lot more interesting to watch. Plus, the team said that it was an artistic decision to help the animation feel like it was made by people and that you're seeing that work in motion. And hey, I respect any team that doubles down on a creative decision that maybe the audience might be conflicted by. There's something else visually that Lackadaisy rocks so well that I didn't even notice it on my first viewing. The way it blends 2D and 3D animation seamlessly. For example, the cars the characters drive, all 3D models. I couldn't even tell up until my third time watching, taking a closer look, going, wait a second, and had to search it up. I love it when early Futurama tries 3D animation because it was so obvious and crude that it became its own joke. But wow! Great work, Lackadaisy team. Now, the animation for Lackadaisy is arguably one of the biggest and most well-received aspects of the pilot, but let's not forget everything else it does well. The sound design in this thing goes hard. Guns have this detailed punch, the sound of tires on dirt and gravel are amazing, explosions. It sounds great, as does the music. All I need to mention is the beat drop in Olive Branch and all the gay people will start. The only thing I'm not the biggest fan of is the story. Most of the pilot's runtime is spent following Rocky, Ivy, and Freckle as they duke it out with a rival gang, but we don't learn about why they're doing all this until there's only 5 minutes left. And I don't mean why the individual characters are doing this work for their own reasons. I mean, we don't know why they're doing it at all until we are at the illegal bar they are running alcohol for. A few hints here and there in the dialogue could have gone a long way to give you at least the faintest idea of what's going on, but instead you'd have to go outside of the pilot and either read a description or the comic itself to find this information out. I do have a few other problems with the script, but they're small enough to where I don't feel compelled to bring them up, and instead I'd like to talk about what I did like from the writing. The characters are great. I especially love Freckle and how he has this other side of his personality that's less cutesy-wootsy and more murdery. I think the pacing is excellent. While I do wish we had a B-plot to follow along with to learn a bit more about the other characters or the world, I do love how each scene flows into one another in a way that keeps up the tension. The dialogue is good, the characters are good, the setup is mostly good, and all in all, I enjoyed this pilot, especially for the animation. And if you also enjoyed this pilot, then great news! Lackadaisy Season 1 is fully funded. So funded that as of the writing of this section, the BackerKit page has gathered 5 times its original goal. Here's the final amount pledged. To say I'm excited for Season 1 would be an understatement. Which, actually, that reminds me. The first season of Hazbin Hotel is going to air next month. You remember Hazbin Hotel, right? That animated pilot that dropped in 2019 and took the world by storm? It's arguably the biggest animated pilot, or really animated anything to be released on YouTube. Well, it was, anyway. I discovered Hazbin Hotel 2 years before it dropped, and started following a few of the updates until its eventual release. The hype for this thing was massive. It was the animation event of the decade. Aside from the regular show finale, that was a little bit more important, sorry not sorry. Hazbin Hotel had been in the works for years. And it shows. The animation is fantastic. Beautiful frame-by-frame animation done by dozens of small and big animators alike. All the characters have this weight, this bob and weave. The world feels so alive and colourful. It was also the biggest draw to the series, as animation of this magnitude had never really existed before on YouTube, especially not for a half-hour pilot. And with animation this good, that's reason enough for this pilot to exist. That's not to dismiss the story though, which I really dig. The Daughter of Hell opens up a hotel right after a yearly genocide, with the goal to rehabilitate sinners. And considering where they are, that's a lot. From the get-go, I was already super into this because I love the theme of redemption, despite how many shows seem to fuck it up. I think it's a good theme to run with, and so far it's done okay-ish. Though there's not really that much to go off of since it's currently just the pilot. It's a good start though. The characters are great too. Charlie's our lead, and despite the fact that she's all nice and happy for most of the pilot, it was both funny as hell and cool to see her break so quickly in the show and starting a fight. Vaggie is also a cool character, albeit not as interesting. I'd say they're co-workers, but Vaggie is more like Charlie's guardian angel who stops her from completely embarrassing herself. Or she tries to. It is nice to see both her supportive side when talking to Charlie and her angrier, more assertive side when berating the femboy spider. Speaking of, Angel Dust is a really fun character. Though he's really only here for comic relief and not much else. He definitely has a more broken side of his character, but we don't see that until the music video, Addict. He's still probably my favorite character of the pilot and has some of the funniest one-liners.
Daddy? Son?
The script does have some issues though. There's so many characters and themes introduced at once to where I feel like it's overstuffed, and through this 30-minute episode we don't actually see how the hotel works. Granted, that may have been held back for the full show, but I still feel like it's important when it's the name of the show you're trying to pitch. Regardless, great work to everybody on this pilot. The writers, animators, voice actors, musicians, everyone. You all made something incredible. Lackadaisy and Hazbin Hotel shows where a project can go with a massive team, but the last thing I want to do is skim over the other projects with a lower budget and smaller team who still managed to create a finished pilot. Hugo's Mind Palace is a sci-fi comedy series created by Alistair Bublé about 3 retail workers of the knick-knack store. What? I'm not going to tell you what it's called. Go on, guess. Guess. You're wrong, it's Fantasy Tesco. The 3 workers are Sam, a robot, George, a lump of dark matter that decided that capitalism was the way to go, and finally, the man himself, Hugo. A human who has a third eye for mysterious reasons I'm sure we'll find out if the show were to get a full series. And honestly, with a pilot this good, I think it should get a full series. I love this pilot's premise. 3 retail workers dimension hopping around to get magical relics to sell to the common folk of Chalkwater. That's a simple, goofy, and interesting premise with a really high ceiling. The possibilities for a show like this is practically infinite, and the pilot is probably the best example I could give. In the pilot, rent is due for the past 5 months, and the team needs to find a rare object that they can sell for a high price. Despite their best judgment, they travel to the spirit realm and meet the Master of Eons!
Oh, you can call me Daryl.
Daryl?
Who tells them that if they do his chores for the day, he'll give them the artifact. And then stuff happens, go and watch the pilot. The animation is nowhere near as glamorous as something like Lackadaisy, but it still has a lot of charm. I love these character designs. They're so fun and cool and really diverse. A human with a 3rd eye, a walking lump of dark matter, and a robot. I think God said that was the perfect trio or something. The characters are well designed, the animation is expressive, and the backgrounds are rich with references and small gags that bring a smile to my stupid, ugly British face. The last 2 projects I talked about had massive teams for its animation, but Hugo's Mind Palace was done by only 2 people. Damn good work. Oh, and the soundtrack's good. This entire review was written while listening to it, and I've even added a few of the tracks to my working playlist. Joseph Fressy and Dylan Wesh nailed both the laid-back vibes of some scenes with tracks like New Beginnings, Closing Time, and Ramen, and the intensity of others with tracks like Daryl and Tearing Reality. Even the B-sides are good. I didn't even think there would be a B-sides, but here we are. Also, the main theme used in the pilot is just an instrumental. The full version is a rap song.
Well, I'ma tell you a story about 3 of the best. George, Sam, and Hugo on a never-ending quest.
I love it so much. The voice acting is good! Next pilot! Monkey Wrench is a sci-fi comedy series created by animator Josh Palmer, aka Zurl. The pilot follows 2 bounty hunters, the lazy Sanchez and the lovable dad-type Beebs, as they complete contract work across the galaxy. In the pilot, the 2 are called to help some crazy bird dude get from point A to point B, but he also just so happens to have a massive bounty on his head for 10 million copies of Pixels on DVD. So basically, the first episode of the show is an escort mission. Great. If there's 2 things you should know about me, it's that I love sci-fi and I love Cowboy Bebop. So from the get-go, Monkey Wrench is kinda cheating because it reminds me of those exact 2 things. But I can't really complain about the show having a premise I'm always going to like, so instead I'll just start complimenting it. The writing is great. The main story of the episode is pretty basic, with the 2 traveling across space while making a few pit stops in which they get chased by other bounty hunters. They get to their destination, fight off a bunch of other bounty hunters, and eventually lose their paycheck to an assassin shown at the start of the episode. It's fun enough to keep me watching, but not interesting enough to carry the whole pilot. Luckily, that's not what the pilot is about. It's really about Sanchez and Beeb's friendships and interactions, and I have to say, I love these 2. Their personalities clash and blend really well, making them just fun to be around, and that's really important for a series where half of the time they're traveling from one part of space to another part of space. The comedy also kept me really entertained. There are so many small one-liners or visual gags that kept a smile on my face from beginning to end. All in all, the writing is great. However, as good as the writing is, it pales in comparison to the animation, which, as you can and have seen, is fantastic. The animation is smooth, bouncy, and just fun to watch. My knowledge on how to critique animation doesn't really go any further than it looks good, but I don't think I need to explain how nice it is when it's on your screen right now. The character designs are also great, and have a lot of variety. Get yourself a cast of characters that consists of a dinosaur lady, small cats, birds, minions without eyes, skeletons, dads, another bird, cat women, and an octopus dude. I don't know, and for the life of me, I can't find any information on what the hell Sanchez is. I love the variety, and I don't think there's a single character with a voice that doesn't fit nor do a stellar job. And remember that all of the things I listed are walking, talking bounty hunters in space. The last action scene at the end of the episode deserves a mention too. Again, I'm an idiot that is god-awful at describing visuals, so I'll just say it's cool as hell and leave it at that. Also, the music's great. Composed by Okoroid too. Nice. This pilot is really well animated, written, and voiced, and so well made that I can't not recommend you go and watch it the second this video ends. And if you like what you see, then get excited. Not too long ago, they came out with a second episode, and a third is on its way. And the fact that the series is doing well enough to where more episodes are being made makes me very, very... Happyland Incorporated follows James and his co-workers at Sir Reginald's Happyland theme park, created by... Egoraptor. Huh. Yeah, the guy that co-created the game Grumps is a member of Starbomb, made video essays on sequels, was a Flash animator, and probably hasn't picked up a pen with the intent of doodling in about 5 years, released a 10-minute long animated pilot basically out of nowhere. And the weirdest thing to me is that despite his reputation and very big following, the pilot is only sitting at around 450,000 views at the time of writing. And it was released 8 months ago. I haven't even really heard anybody talk about this pilot. I found it by searching up pilots on YouTube. That begs the question, is this just another attempt to stay relevant with Aaron trying to dip his toes into yet another medium, that of indie animation? Is this just a soulless, lazily produced proof of concept that does nothing to add to the wave of already existing and mostly great pilots on YouTube? Is this pilot bad? No. It's not. In fact, I think it's the third best pilot on this list, only beaten by Monkey Wrench and Lackadaisy. And yes, I know that these three had the most eyes on them and probably even had a budget going in, so of course they're going to be the highest quality. But in my defense, it's mainly the writing that makes me like these three pilots, so I guess I should start with that. The episode opens on a book, presenting the title of the park and the name of the episode, Chowder Style, as stop-motion clay birds fly around it. One cool transition later, and we're now in Happyland. Goes from 0 to 100 real quick when a bus kills a raccoon, nearly flies off a bridge, people are screaming. What the hell is going on? Watching this show feels like I'm on all of the drugs at once. I had to rewatch this thing just to understand what the hell was even happening. I still can't keep up with everything that's going on sometimes. And I love that! I love almost everything about the writing, and yes, I said almost because I do have some issues which I'm going to get out of the way now. I think the biggest thing I didn't like was the dialogue. It's serviceable for the most part, and good in others, though it's clearly not the main focus. Its goal is to cram as many jokes in at once while actively trying to set your brain on fire, so I don't get why it then has James constantly trying and failing to form basic sentences or repeat words he's already said. The first time this happens, it's at a time when he's nervous about starting his first day on the job, which is understandable. But this happens 3 more times and just annoyed me at every single turn, because it ironically broke the neck-breaking pace it had been setting up. My second, really minor complaint is that this thing goes too fast. I'm honestly surprised at how well they kept up this constant barrage of jokes while still managing to introduce the characters and their personalities, but I wish we maybe could have had a bit more time doing that. Amy's a good example. We see her once at the beginning and as a small cutaway scene 7 minutes in, but all we really know about her is that she worships the devil and is dating James. That's it. Maybe if we didn't spend so much time umming and erring, we could have gotten to know her a little better. Though I'll admit this really is just a nitpick. This issue could easily be fixed if it was a little longer while keeping the same quick pace. Those are my 2 big complaints with the writing. Now time to compliment the crap out of it, because Happyland Incorporated does a lot of things right, so I'm just gonna start listing those things off. If this pilot did anything, I would say it exceeded my expectations, and it did that over and over and over again, and somehow I didn't learn that it was going to keep on doing that by the time it ended. My favorite example is when James meets this guy.
Character? You feeling confident, buddy?
Not really.
That's a shame. Here, why don't you take the wheel for me?
Hey, wait, I don't...
You're natural. You were made for this.
When he runs off after James asks what character he's supposed to be, you'd think that would be the last we really see of him. You know, maybe we'd see him again around the end of the episode, ask him what was up before, but nope!
Looks like somebody's got a death wish!
This took me completely by surprise when I first watched it. We then learn later that this Thing, whose name is also Carrot, is a big problem to the park's owner, who I think is called Meryl, setting up what could be a massive subplot in a theoretical season 1. All of this from a character who I thought was just going to be an offhand joke and who would maybe show up every now and again, but not do much else. I love it. It's stupid, it's weird, and it's crazy. And this isn't the only example. Halfway through the pilot, this character called Harley Wayne changes James's name tag to Slim Jim and then says he eats poo. Very grown-up comedy, I know. But that offhand joke is no longer a joke anymore. That is a cold, hard fact of life. Apart from the second one, thank God.
Slim Jim! Slim Jim.
Hey, Slim Jim!
Every character other than Meryl calls and refers to him as Slim Jim. That's his name now. Even in his own dreams, his depiction of his girlfriend calls him that as he's accepted it. Even in the credits, Aaron isn't voicing James, he's voicing Slim Jim. I'm British! I don't even know what the f*** a Slim Jim is, I've only ever seen the Aqua Teen Hunger Force ads for them! There's a lot more I could say about the writing, but I still have the rest of the pilot to review, so I'm going to end off this part here by saying that the writing is funny, interesting, unique, and gives the series a strong setup if we ever get future episodes. You just might need to watch it 2 or 3 times to fully understand what the f*** just happened. The animation is also, god damn, I need to find some new words to say this, great. It's snappy, it's expressive, it's colourful, it's bouncy, it feels like it was made by 2 people on only the highest quality cocaine. And while the last part isn't true, the former is. This pilot was animated entirely by 2 people, a team known as Small Boo, who have also worked on other projects like Batman Piderman, Adventure Time, Later Alligator, My Arch Nemesis, Clarence, and that dog I keep seeing everywhere on Twitter. It's still Twitter, it's not X. I type in twitter.com and it still comes up with Twitter. F you, Elon Musk. It's clear that they've really refined their craft over the last however long they've been animating for, and it shows in Happyland Incorporated. The character designs are pretty simple, and oddly enough, the most average of the pilots I've reviewed today, despite the characters arguably being the most out there. That's not to say I don't like them, I just don't think they're all that interesting visually. Aside from Carrot. Anyway, the animation is great. Some of the angles and perspectives these 2 decided to go with are great. This scene of Carrot running down a hall to murder a SWAT team was really visually interesting, and those were words that just came out of my mouth. And while yes, that has a lot to do with the actual animation itself, it also has a lot to do with the amazing backgrounds. Don't think I forgot about you, Matt Cummings. Great work. Let's talk voice acting, and we're going from characters seen the least to characters seen the most for reasons you'll learn about at this timestamp. Jenny Davis Crawford voices Amy. I don't actually have enough dialogue to go off of here, but from what I've heard, she does a good job. And Hila Baimani voices Hyacinth, which are awesome names, both of which I probably said wrong. Her energy is great. That's it, that's all I have to say. Becca Q voices Begonia, and yeah, great job too. We don't, and probably never will, hear much range from a character like this, but some of her takes got me.
You're bleeding on the popcorn. We can't sell that. $4, kid. No refunds. Sorry.
And finally, Aaron Hansen. Aaron Hansen. Aaron Hansen. Aaron Hansen. Aaron Hansen. Aaron Hansen. Oh, so it's one of those shows, is it? Well, guess what? I don't mind it. Because honestly, Aaron Hansen isn't a good voice actor. He's a great one. The guy's actually been doing it for years and I didn't even realize it. So how does he do in Happyland Incorporated? Great, he does great. He's expressive, his pronunciations are great and often hilarious.
You feeling confident, buddy?
Not really.
That's a shame.
But I think the best part about Aaron's voice acting is that you can tell he's just having a bunch of fun.
Mighty thrust! Fuchsia punch!
Yeah. Mighty suplex! Mighty Frankensteiner!
I want that! I want to have as much fun as he's having! Because the final product is a cast of characters mostly voiced by one dude, but each having their own unique flair that gives the characters even more character. And then the music, composed by Brian Weck, so it's automatically great because I love this guy and I'm biased as hell? It is genuinely good though. Jesus Christ, I talked about this pilot for a long time. Can we move on? Making an animated short film or pilot is a very difficult task, and as we've seen with Lackadaisy and Hazbin Hotel, can be very time consuming and very expensive. Finishing a pilot like this at this quality with a team this big is amazing on its own, but considering that there wasn't any big TV networks or streaming services to pay for it makes it all the more impressive. Now, what if I told you that there were shows, full shows with multiple seasons at this quality being made right now, completely free to watch on YouTube? A bit of a disclaimer, this video is made to celebrate the new wave of indie animation going forward, but I also see it as an opportunity to review these shows all in the same video. With that said, this is going to be a review, which means eventually I am going to be saying something negative about these shows. I'm leaving this note here to say in advance that I don't mean any disrespect to the people that made these shows or the shows themselves. If I am talking about them in this video, it is either because I actively love them, respect them, or both. Besides, it would feel disingenuous and, to an extent, patronizing to the creator if I didn't give their project the same respect I would give any other show I review. Because this is a show. Like, this is a full show that is written, directed, voiced, animated, all the bells and whistles. It is a show, and I don't want to treat it any differently just because it's indie. With that said, Helluva Boss is another animated show by VivziePop, and if you are on the internet at all, you definitely know about it. You can't not know about it. You can't escape it. I've tried. It's always there. And if you run away, it will find you. And it will catch you. Unlike Hazbin Hotel, Helluva Boss already has numerous episodes under its belt, and is already on its second season, with a new episode coming out every few months. In Helluva Boss, we follow the employees of the Immediate Murder Professionals, or IMP for short. Each episode, we follow the crew as they travel to Earth and kill whoever the person paying them wants them to kill. Or at least, that's what the first season is mostly about, but season 2 is a lot more story and character driven, and I guess that's a better place than ever to actually start talking about the show itself. Season 1 is pretty damn good. I wouldn't say it's anything so amazing that it changes my perception of writing and animation, but it hits every nail on the head. Most episodes focus on a character and how the situation they're in conflicts with a part of their character. I think the first episode does this best, as it tackles Moxie's morals against killing happy families, ironically looping back around as this family turns out to be a bunch of psychopaths. It teaches a pretty funny anti-moral too, which works as this is a show that takes place in HE double assault rifle. Episodes 2, 5, and 7 have a large focus on the emotional aspect of certain characters, and it's really well done. And hey, I don't think there's a single bad episode in this first season. The worst we get is episode 4 titled Cherub, but even then, that episode is at least watchable. So yeah, it's a good season. A good season that ends on a two-parter that only just got the second part over a year later. That whole situation was such a mess that they changed the title saying it was a two-parter to its own standalone episode and went on to the next season like nothing ever happened. Safe to say it was a messy finish, but surely the next season would fix that, right? Season 2 so far is a bit of a weird one. I don't want to say it's outright bad, because it's not, but the writing took a big shift which I'm not the biggest fan of. For one, the way these episodes explore these relationships have their own problems. The worst for me is X's and O's, where Moxie has an opportunity to show the development he's had in the series, like in 105 and 106. But instead, Millie swoops in to save the day, who at this point had no character development whatsoever, and episode 205 was episode 205. For 2, I feel like the premise of the show has gotten a little lost. There's only been one episode so far this season where anyone from IMP goes to the living realm to do a job, which is the premise of the show. I just feel like these emotional, more story-driven episodes should have been spread out in between the usual IMP affairs, which can still aid in character development as shown in Season 1. And the final big problem I've been having is that Season 2 feels like it's speedrunning its story. I didn't know much about Fizz aside from his robot counterpart in Episode 2, but that story basically got resolved in the same episode where the real Fizzaroli was introduced. However, I've still been having fun with these new episodes. Even though I just complained about this, I do still like how some of these episodes are focused on the relationships between characters and furthering them. There have been some really sweet moments, especially in episodes 202 and 206. And the action still goes hard. They are so damn fun! The fight between Millie, Moxie, and Stryker in episode 204 was amazing. So the quality of the writing is a mixed bag the second you introduce season 2, but what has stayed consistently incredible is the animation. This is easily the best looking show on the internet, hands down, and I think it looks much better than most other mainstream shows out there, like Big Mouth and 90% of Netflix's other animated shows. There seems to be a love-hate relationship when it comes to the character designs, but personally, I'm in the former. I think they look cool. The backgrounds, lighting, and special effects look great, the character animation is nice and expressive, and the action scenes are full of blood-pumping violence. Most episodes also have these really creative shot compositions that look amazing, and in conclusion, the animation itself looks fantastic. They aren't short episodes either. Earlier episodes ran around 10 to 15 minutes, but every episode in season 2 has been around the 20-minute mark. That's 20 solid minutes of some damn good looking animation, and again, they release an episode every few months. Huge props to the animators of Spindlehorse for working this hard. And after looking at the credits, that's a lot of props to give. This team is massive, and considering the amount of people in these credits, I don't think it's a long shot to say that this is one of, if not the biggest online studio for indie animation. Again, teams like this have existed before, but not to this scale and not with this much success, so it's really good to see. It means that the project being made most likely won't be meddled with by some suit, because the only sources funding the team is YouTube ads, their Patreon, and their constant merch drops. And the best part is that more and more studios like this are on the rise. Glitch Productions is one of those studios, specializing in 3D animation. The company came from humble origins, making funny memes using Nintendo's IPs and somehow not getting sued for it. SMG4 was a channel I watched religiously in high school, but nearing the end of 2018, I started to get really burnt out with the types of videos they were making. They began to introduce new characters, which admittedly was really cool, because all of the videos thus far was just using characters from the Mario universe. But then they added more and more and more and more, and okay buddy. They also gave certain episodes a continuous storyline which they called arcs. While many of these arcs walk the line between good and not as good, it shows that the guys behind SMG4 were interested in telling more ambitious stories. So when they announced Meta Runner, I was very interested. An original animated web series about a woman who can jump inside video games in a world that is influenced everywhere by gaming. Now, as terrible as that sounds, while the world of Meta Runner is a little bit silly in concept, it puts you into that world and lets it do its thing, and while it can take itself a little bit too seriously at times, it doesn't feel insecure about the world it's put you in. I mean, it should. They made gamers important and that should be considered a crime, but I'm glad they don't because it means they could just tell the story. Speaking of, the series starts with our main character Tari waking up in what looks to be a lab with no one around. She exits into Silica City and looks in awe at the beautiful lights. She plays a game, accidentally jumps inside of it not knowing how or why she has these abilities, and suddenly has an evil corporation chasing her down for her powers. The first season is pretty average in quality. The animation is good, but just barely. It's a very basic style which admittedly works in its favor every now and again, but also holds it back in others. And on top of that very basic style is very basic mocap. It's serviceable for most of the season, but in other scenes, it just feels What I think saves the visuals is the character designs. I love the look of Tari, Belle, Masa, Sophia, Lux, Lamar. Theo too, I guess, but I don't think he translates well into 3D at all. They all have their own colors and flares, and yeah, I like them. And to be fair, the first season has some great scenes in terms of its animation, especially around the end. The fight between Tari and Belle in the last episode, when they're falling to the ground and they're slinging spells at each other and the music kicks in, and okay, this scene is good. So I don't think the animation is anything to write home about, but I still want to give massive kudos to the whole animation team for still getting this thing done. Because this was a new studio making their first original animated show on a pretty low budget considering typical shows of a similar style, and still making it look, at bare minimum, good. They weren't released every few months either, they came out in bulk. One episode every week, from point A to point B. That is not an easy task to pull off. So hell yeah, considering the circumstances, Metarunner looks pretty damn good. With that said, Season 2's animation got a much better jump in quality. They switched to this more cartoony, flatter style, which I think works way better. Expressions and character movement look a lot more natural, and the character designs shine in this new look. I don't hate how Theo looks anymore. That's progress, baby. And again, there are some scenes in this season that go hard. Finally, Season 3 uses the same style from Season 2, but with ray tracing turned on. I'm joking, of course, but it does look much better. Everybody's at their most expressive, the lighting is great, environments are nice. Fight scenes have always been pretty good in the show, but damn, this season rocks them. The animation still isn't amazing compared to big budget TV like Arcane, The Dragon Prince, or Cars on the Road, but considering that the whole season was paid for by merch sales, this looks great. Small problem though. This art style? Yeah, it makes up about a quarter of this season's runtime. Once Tari enters Skybreakers though, we switch to an even more cartoony look. And it still looks great. It's definitely not as detailed or as cool as the out-of-game style, but the characters are at their most expressive and the fight scenes still kick ass, so I'm a happy boy. Overall, the animation quality for the series is good, edging on great, and I feel like it sets a new standard for indie CGI animation going forward. When it comes to shows at least. But what about the rest of Metarunner? The music slaps, the voice actors do a great performance, the writing— oh, the writing! As I said before, I'm not really the biggest fan of the premise as it's a little goofy. Me Gamer Me Jump in Video Game is probably the nerdiest idea that every writer has tried once and most times f*** it up. But again, I think it's executed pretty well in Metarunner. It's not a if you die in the game, you die in real life plot, like He Who Shall Not Be Named, but they still give the story and characters actual stakes. Example, also spoilers, skip to this timestamp if you don't want them. In Season 1, Tari and a team of players dead set on taking down TazCorp go to a game tournament in order to get dirt on the company to take them down. They went to a game tournament where they play games to gather information on a multi-million-dollar corporation. Fucking okay? But it works with Tari's abilities as she can jump into the game and perform a glitch that briefly takes the servers down, allowing another character to search the files for information. The setting for that scene is also cool as hell. It makes it a really dramatic few episodes. Also, the people that skipped the spoilers are dumb and stupid and probably sniff butts, but let's keep that between you and me. Anyway, no more spoilers. Point is that the premise of some virgin jumping into a video game actually works pretty well in this series, and it gets especially good around the last season. In fact, I think it's probably one of the best ways I've seen this premise done. The only show that probably does it better is Glitch Text, but I haven't seen Glitch Text yet, so it's disqualified due to my laziness. What I didn't expect was for the drama to be as good as it was. Metarunner has comedy. I wouldn't say it's the best comedy, but it got a few laughs out of me, so it does the job. The drama is on another level though. I did not expect for scenes to get so dark. And I'm not talking about Lux acting like your typical fictional CEO. Not all too far off from the real ones. I mean something like the ending of Season 1. If you know, you know. Again, the episodes leading up to that climax have this dark and massive feel to them. At that moment, it feels like so much more than a Smash Bros. Tournament. It feels important. Unlike a Smash Bros. Taunt, Season 3 is definitely Meta Runner's peak for me. The dialogue, the story, and the writing in general is just at its best. And even though the show does have a few problems, as a whole, Meta Runner is a great first start for a new studio. I can point at the fairly subpar animation or the constant product placement in the first season as areas to improve on, but considering the conditions the team was under, it feels like a dick move to harp on about them. So I won't. What I'll say instead is that Meta Runner was great, and you should watch it. And honestly, it's kind of a bummer that it's flown pretty under the radar compared to Glitch Productions' other show. Murder Drones is another CGI animated series created by Liam Vickers, the same guy who made the animated pilot Cliffside, which I reviewed back in my video on animated pilots. Murder Drones is about a planet of worker drones, so already we're completely off topic. To get back on topic, I'll mention that the company that made the worker drones lost control of them, and to deal with them sent out disassembly drones to clean up the mess. And by clean up, I mean murder, they're murder drones. One day, angsty teen and genius gunmaker Uzi leaves into the outside world to do some exploring, and comes face to face with N, who eventually both team up, kill J, and restrain V. And then their buddy E walks in, who slips on a banana peel left by P, who stole it from C, who bought it from a restaurant called Applebee. That was the pilot. The following episodes are this weird hybrid between self-contained adventures and a heavy continuing plot. For example, in episode 2 we follow Uzi and Den investigating some disappearances. In episode 3 we go to prom. Episode 4 we go camping. But also in episode 2 we meet Doll, and Uzi and Den have a falling out. In episode 3, Uzi and Den are friends again and they fight Doll, who leaves this necklace, and Uzi finds out that she has this weird eye thing called the Absolute Solver that lets her control objects or break down walls or whatever else. In episode 4 we go to camp while Uzi investigates the necklace, and okay, if you're that interested, then go and watch the show yourself. I guess this is a better place than any to actually start reviewing the show, but I want to end on a good note, so let's talk about what I didn't like first, starting with the characters. Now, let me set one thing straight. I like these characters. They're fun, interesting, and have some hilarious moments. But I also think that they're fairly basic. The biggest offender is Uzi, who is angsty teen girl personality to a T. V is about the same, but she does have a bit more to her. She's dark, sarcastic, wants to murder everyone, but she has some not so well hidden concerns about her origins that N digs up like he's on an Egyptian excavating survey, which is actually nice to see. Speaking of, N is probably the most interesting character out of the 3 leads. He starts off as a wimpy drone who wouldn't talk back or even think of harming V or J, but 4 episodes later, he's telling V to sit down and shut up while he deals with the ongoing threat. Based N? Every other side character is mostly a collection of surface level traits. The only characters that avoid this are Tessa and Doll, which are also the ones we see the most, especially in recent episodes. The other big problem I'm having with the season so far is the pacing. One word: breakneck. For the beat-by-beat story of each episode, I think the fast pace is great. It keeps it from being boring and makes some of the horror elements and action scenes that much more interesting. Where this becomes a problem is when you consider that this show has an overarching story over multiple episodes. Remember in the pilots when Uzi makes it her goal to go to Earth and murder every single last human on the planet? When was the last time the characters actually talked about doing that? Trick question, it's the beginning of episode 2. Then the series changes to Uzi getting weird powers and why she has them, and then she becomes a cannibal in episode 4. Episode 5 slows things down a bit and centers the story onto the tracks, and episode 6 was fantastic. I'll talk about that in a minute. I think the show's earlier episodes could have used a bit more time to establish the world and characters, because they really do just jump right into the frying pan starting with episode 2. Okay, enough of my bitching. Let's talk about why this show is one of the best airing on YouTube right now. Episode 6 was downright incredible. I don't think this is recency bias either, because everybody I've talked to about this episode has been in complete agreement. This is currently the peak of murder drones and exhibits either everything the show does right or what it can be when it does. Something specifically episode 6 does much better than the rest of the show is the pacing. The episode has very similar pacing to others that I've had problems with, but it's so much more condensed and streamlined to where it feels like it's more natural. For the first time in the show, I went the entire episode not feeling like I was missing some crucial piece of information because the story was rushing me through the footnotes, and I was fully entertained throughout. Some smaller things I loved about the episode: the antagonists, Alice and Bo, are interesting and adorable respectively. I love Alice's dialogue and voice actor, and Bo is just a real one. Dude's such a bro. No! Speaking of Bo, this scene was terrifying.
Shoot the baby immediately.
Horror is something Murder Drones has been good at from episode 2 onwards, and it has a lot to do with the designs of the characters and the lighting. A good example would be everyone. All of the main characters we follow have eldritch forms where they get wings and scary teeth, and that's kind of it. The Absolute Solver and Sin is much more terrifying. Normal Sin is just like every other character, but then she has a Aperture Science security camera form. Where are the cameras coming from? I don't know, but it looks awesome. And then there's another form. Like I said, most of the characters we follow have an eldritch form, and Sin's is bug. Episode 2 really shows off how creepy this design is. This scene gave me the shivers when I first saw it. It's amazing. Now, we don't get anything this creepy in episode 6, but what we do get is these goofy dinos. They aren't scary, but they're the best designs in the entire show. Fight me. One wields a sword in the final fight. Are you not entertained by this? The horror, action, comedy, and pacing was some of the best Murder Drones we've gotten so far, and Liam Vickers really showed off how much better his writing got. If I had any complaints, one of them would be that they're still rushing the romance between Uzi and Den, though I admit the scene of them holding hands was cute, I guess. You. And that cliffhanger was cool, but also a little underwhelming considering we know that disassembly drones can regenerate body parts. Now, the character might actually be dead, but I get the strong feeling they'll bring them back in the future. If you didn't want spoilers, then don't worry, you still get to guess who I'm talking about. It's Khan. Aside from those two nitpicks, the episode was one of the best, and every time I watch it, I'm on the edge of my seat for the entire run. Another thing worth mentioning, this animation goes hard as f***. Something I loved about Cliffside was the character design of Cordy, the spider girl whose ass killed a pterodactyl. Yep, nothing wrong with that comment. And then for Murder Drones, Liam does it again. Uzi, N, and V look, for lack of a better term, badass. The actual animation itself has this weight and style to it. It's mesmerizing at times. And dude, the action scenes in this show. Most of the series is coated in shadows, even in places like the high school or Uzi's house, places which you'd expect to be fairly well lit. But no, the most lighting we see in the entire show is in the prom episode. And I love that. I love how dark the series is. It feels like a horror half the time, especially in episodes 4, 5, and 6. They nailed the lighting in those. The first season of Murder Drones really shows what the studio learned from Metarunner and where it can go in the future. If I had any notes about where the animation could improve, I'd say that there are still a few scenes where characters move a little jankily. Jankily, is that even a word? I don't think it is. More natural movement would be nice, but even then that's a very small complaint when the rest of the show looks this damn good. Once again, fantastic work to all of the animators at Glitch Productions. There's only one thing that gets anywhere close to topping the animation in Murder Drones, and if you've watched the show, you'll already know what I'm going to talk about. You have 2.5 seconds to guess it in your head. If you're wrong, you have to buy me an arrow. If you guess the voice acting, then you're wrong. I like the caramel chocolate arrow, by the way. It's actually the music, composed by AJ Disparito. I didn't mention his work in the Metarunner review, as while it was good, I felt like it was much better to save the praise for his best work, because his music for Murder Drones is, well... Oh, you feel that? You feel kind of cold in your room? Yeah, obviously it does, because that tune just gave you the chills. The dark atmosphere I talked about in the animation section is intensified by the soundtrack and its many creepy ambient beats. As a soundtrack, it works well, blending into the background and making scenes feel more tense. And that's how soundtracks really are supposed to work in TV, you know? But sometimes you gotta say that and play Get Prommed at full blast so your stupid parents know that you're an angsty teen and that they don't understand you and your emotions. And even if they did, they wouldn't be able to fix the fractured soul that is you, and they'll never understand why you wear only black hoodies and drink Monster all the time. What of it, Mum? Also, the album covers are cool. It's the characters T-posing. I love it. Anyway, currently the soundtrack for the pilot is available on streaming alongside the soundtrack for episodes 2 to 6, so go check them out. Now, it would be wrong of me to not mention the killer, pun intended, cast of murder drones before ending this review. Uzi is voiced by Elsie Lovelock, and she does a great job. You already know I'm not the biggest fan of the dialogue, but Elsie makes these lines a lot more interesting than they would be otherwise. V is voiced by Nola Klopp, and she's good. She's not as expressive as Uzi or Ren, but that's more because of the character and less of the voice actor. She still does a great job, and that's really all I could ask for. Oh, by the way, have you ever heard of this guy called Michael Kovac? If you care about indie animation at all, you probably have, as he's in every single indie animated project under the sun. Hey Michael, I'm making an indie animated project of my own, call me? He voices N, and is probably my favorite voice actor in Murder Drones. Aside from Tessa. He delivers his lines well, he's funny, he's expressive, and it's just fun to listen to. And you can tell that Kovac is having fun himself. Great work from Kovac and the rest of the voice actors. In conclusion, Murder Drones is a massive achievement, and by far the best looking show on Glitch right now. The best Glitch production still remains to be seen, and with a brand new show on the horizon, Murder Drones and Metarunner might have some competition. The Amazing Digital Circus is a new dark comedy series created by Gooseworks about a woman called Pomni who gets trapped in a virtual world. No! And gets tormented by wacky AI and their own personal traumas. Their words, not mine. The pilot dropped just over 2 months ago, and holy crap, it's already at over 100 million views. Safe to say it's going to get a first season. Or 2. Or 5. Probably 19 with the merch money involved. I didn't review it in this video because I feel like I could save a full review for another episode down the line, but I will give my quick thoughts here. The animation is, say it with me, amazing. In some aspects, it's even better than Murder Drones, especially when it comes to the character designs, how they move, and other stuff like that. I do feel like it needs another few episodes to pin down its animation style. I feel like there's tons of empty space in a lot of these shots that kinda rubs me the wrong way. Still, great animation. The writing is a similar story. I love the characters.
King is my favorite.
And the way the pilot sets up the story for the rest of the show is damn good. One character who was written really well is Kane. Before the pilot released, we got a few peeks at the characters and their personalities, and I thought that Kane would be a villain who didn't realize he was a villain while everyone shits themselves out of fear around him. But no, while he is the one pulling the strings and is oblivious to most of the harm he's causing, people do go to him when they need help, and they never act hostile to him. It was really interesting to watch, and I hope that when the full show comes out, the relationships will be just as interesting. For real though, Kinga is the best. And that's all I wrote. That was just a few projects, not counting the many that have been announced but haven't released yet, including, but not limited to, Black Pines, Lumi and the Great Big Galaxy, Tally Ho, Little Wolf, Swift Spark and the Defense 5, Fighting All Odds, The Lovers, Ghost Friends, and this little thing I'm trying to make myself, still in development, called Stickers. Now, not long ago, I made a video talking about how we as animation enjoyers and creators were both ways as our favourite shows were taken away and dozens of animators lost their jobs. But I think indie animation is single-handedly going to turn that all around. For creators, writers, voice actors, animators, there are so many different shows being developed right now that there is always going to be something to work on. Granted, we need more of these indie projects to be paying industry standards, but with shows like Lackadaisy and Helluva Boss ramping up in popularity, I don't see why that won't happen sometime soon. Oh, and the best part? The creative freedom to do whatever the hell we want. The wackiest, stupidest, craziest, quirkiest ideas that would usually be turned down by big studios is now in the hands of the creators and the fans that watch them. And I am so excited to see what we all make. End video! Hey there, thank you for watching my video. Huge thanks to Rozé, Ion, and Tappy for the incredible artwork this episode. If you want to support the channel, watch the behind the scene videos and get extra goodies like artwork, outtakes, and the original script for the episode, go over to our Patreon and just throw $2 our way. I'll be using it to make an animated pilot of my own, so pretty please donate. Okay, bye.